Eagle 95.1, WUPN, Paradise, Sault Ste. Marie.
It's time for The Game. Eagle 95.1 proudly brings you The Game, the Twin Sault's only regional and national sports show. For the next hour, we'll get an in-depth look at sports in the Eastern Upper Peninsula and Algoma region and hear from coaches and players involved in The Game. Now, let's join Scott Nason at the Wicked Sister on Ashman Street in downtown Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan, for tonight's broadcast of The Game on Eagle 95.1.
It's time to play the game. Time to play the game! It's all about the game, and how you play it. All about control, and if you can take it, all about your debt. And if you can pay it, it's all about pay. And who's gonna make?
Get Wicked Catering from the crew at the Wicked Sister.
We like to think of ourselves as foodies. While our favorite foods are paired with a beer tasting at the Wicked Sister, you can now have the same creative menu for your next catered business luncheon, family get-together, wedding, or holiday party. Our white truffle risotto appeals to your gluten-free and vegetarian guests. Add sautéed shrimp or freshly grilled chicken for a pop of protein. Or let us build you a custom menu to suit your needs. From plated events of 15 to buffets for 200, the Wicked Sister will cater your event with tapas, snacks, cravables, or a full sit-down dinner.
The Wicked Sister, where you'll be treated like family, whether you like it or not.
Greetings and salutations, and welcome to The Game on Eagle 95.1 and online at thegamesportshow.com. Scott Nason broadcasting from Greenville, South Carolina. Yes, you heard that correctly. I am down in the heart of Dixie. The second of 2 weeks for a work training. Beautiful area of the world, Greenville, South Carolina. And all y'all having some bad weather up there, I know, this week, which has affected a lot of the sporting events, which we're going to talk to. The weather has not been bad down here. As a matter of fact, we were in the mid-70s last week, cooled off a bit to the 50s. I know that seems like I'm rubbing it in. And maybe a little bit, but I'll be paying the piper when I get back next Friday. But we're down here, so we're not going to be having our show Monday night at the Wicked Sister. We will be back at the Wicked Sister on Monday, February 18th, President's Day. And we will have hopefully our full assortment of characters for the game. But we'll be down in South Carolina for another week. Had a chance to check out some sporting events down here. Had the chance to actually see the Greenville Swamp Rabbits in the East Coast Hockey League. They played last week in overtime victory, and then saw the Bob Jones University women's basketball this past week, and going to go see the Furman Paladins and their Division I team. They actually have a pretty good team. You may be seeing them in the NCAA tournament. So it's been a nice time down in South Carolina, but we still have to talk about the world of local sports. Now, if you missed anything from this past week, you can catch several shows on thegamesportshow.com or thegamesportshow.podbean.com. Dave McKeag had three editions of his show. Tuesday night from Icebreakers Bar in the John Rhodes Community Center. Also Wednesday night from Sports Center Bar and Grill, and Thursday night from Northern Superior Brewery. We also had Butch on Sports, a couple editions, so you still have your sports fill on thegamesportshow.com. But let's go back and recap the last week or so in the world of local sports. Let's start with high school basketball. Going back to Friday, February 1st, the Brimley Bays, they improved to 15-0 in boys basketball as they were at Rudyard and defeated the Bulldogs by the score of 89-78. Cedarville at Engadine on the 1st in boys basketball was all Trojans as they defeat the Eagles by the score of 80-54. Newberry over Detour in boys basketball on February 1st by the score of 76-60. And Pickford all over St. Ignace by the score of 71-47. Hockey last Friday, February 1st, the Sioux Greyhounds were on a long road trip and they defeated Erie by the score of 4-1. The Sioux Eagles let one get away at Elliott Lake on the 1st as they fell to the Wildcats by the score of 5-4. And the Lake Superior State University Lakers, first of two at Ferris State, and they defeated the Bulldogs by the score of 6-3. Last Saturday, February 2nd, the Laker women's and men's teams were down at Saginaw Valley. The women fell to the Cardinals by the score of 66-52, while the men defeated Saginaw Valley State by the score of 87-72. And at the end of that game, there was a little bit of a scuffle. As a matter of fact, it was quite a scuffle involving several players from both teams. Laker hockey last Saturday swept Ferris for the first time in over 20 years as they defeated the Bulldogs by the score of 4-2. The Lakers were off this weekend, so Lake Superior State with a record of 18-8-2. And we'll talk about them more here as we look at the standings. Sioux Greyhounds at Oshawa last Saturday, and they defeated the Generals by the score of 3-2. So starting on Monday of this past week, well, there was a big snowstorm in the area. Actually, this was the ice storm. We had all sorts of weather. All y'all had some bad weather up there, I hear. And last Monday, the Rudyard Bay City game was postponed as well. The Sioux Eagles and Sioux Thunderbirds, both on the road. The Thunderbirds were scheduled to play at Blind River. The Eagles were scheduled to play at Elliott Lake. Both those games postponed due to the ice storm. Other games going on in the area last Tuesday, well, there were a couple games that got in. The St. Ignace Saints girls basketball team improves to 15-0. As they defeated Gaylord by the score of 74-24, and Pickford in girls basketball improves to 10-4 as they defeat Newberry by the score of 62-47. Engadine at Rapid River girls game canceled. Wednesday night, couple games got in boys basketball. Newberry over Pickford, a little bit of a surprise there by the score of 73-66, and Cedarville, they're starting to play very well as they were all over Rudyard in boys basketball by the score of 87-37. Wednesday night at the Memorial Gardens, the Sioux Greyhounds fell to Sudbury by the score of 4-2. And then the blizzard, which hit the area on Thursday, canceled a bunch of games. Newberry at Brimley, Rudyard at Sheboygan, Cedarville at Pickford, Detour at Engadine, St. Ignace at the Sioux girls games, all canceled because of the weather, and then also canceled the Sioux High boys game against St. Ignace. Those are rescheduled for next week, I believe next Monday. Laker men's and women's team at home on Thursday, despite the campus being closed and the roads being pretty rough. They got some basketball in at the Coop. The Laker women with a big victory over Wayne State, their second conference victory, as they defeated the Wayne State squad, the Warriors, by the score of 50-46. And the Laker men with a big victory as well. They defeat Wayne State by the score of 90-66. High school basketball on Friday. The blizzard continued. It canceled one game, Sheboygan at Rudyard in boys basketball. But there was one game that did get in. It was Cedarville improving to 11-5 in boys basketball as they defeat Pickford by the score of 85-54. At the John Rhodes Community Center on Thursday night, it was the Sioux Thunderbirds and Sioux Eagles tangling, and it was the Eagles with a victory over the Sioux Thunderbirds by the score of 4-3. As the Eagles, well, they got a big victory. Always a big victory when you beat the first place team, but they got a big one there at the John Rose Community Center on Thursday, or rather Friday, as they defeat the Thunderbirds by the score of 4-3. Looking at that game, the Sioux Eagles, Kobe Keller had a goal and 2 assists, Brendan Blair with a goal and an assist, and Dominic Scarella with a goal and an assist. Riley Jensen scored the other goal for the Eagles, as Shane Brancato, he made 29 saves in net for the home team. The border battle continued on Saturday night at the Puller Stadium in front of a big crowd at the Puller. The Eagles took a 1-0 lead heading into the second period, but Lucas Terrio, boys, he had a fantastic season or what? He scored 3 goals for the Thunderbirds, leading the T-Birds to a 4-2 victory over the Sioux Eagles on Saturday night at Puller Stadium. Had a chance to catch a lot of that game on Hockey TV with Larry Pozzabon and Rob Horn. As I mentioned, Lucas Terrio with 3 goals in that game, 34 on the season. Nick Smith also had a goal for the Thunderbirds, as Dominic Scarella, he scored the only goal for the Sioux Eagles on Saturday. So looking at the standings in the NOJHL's West Division, the Thunderbirds, they're going to finish first. They have 71 points. They're probably going to have the best record in the NOJHL. Rayside Belfour at second with 57 points. Blind River in third, 51. The Sioux Eagles in fourth with 49 points. And Elliott Lake, they're in fifth with 41 points. So the Eagles, they're going to have a makeup game against Elliott Lake this week. Need to get that one because they only have 9 games left. They have to play the Thunderbirds, I believe, 3 more times, including Friday night at Puller Stadium. So the Eagles want to try to get into one of those top 3 spots. And if they do, they'll avoid that first round best-of-3 matchup, which will be against Elliott Lake more than likely. And then they'll take on the Sioux Thunderbirds if they win that. So still Blind River in their sights. The Eagles have played very good hockey since the beginning of the year, and they're going to try to see if they can get in third place. Sioux Greyhounds in action later on today at the Memorial Gardens. They'll take on the London Knights. That should be a fantastic game involving the 2 best teams in the Western Conference. And last night, the Sioux Greyhounds took on Niagara. They almost let a big lead slip away. They led big, but they would hold on to defeat the Ice Dogs by the score of 7-6. Keegan Howdashell had 2 goals and an assist for the Hounds. Morgan Frost with a goal and 3 assists. Cole McKay with a goal and 2 assists. As the Hounds right now, they're looking good in the West, but they are being challenged by Saginaw. The Hounds with a record of 34-12, 5-1, 74 points. 2 points ahead of Saginaw with 72, taking on a London team that has the best record in the West, 80 points. And so that one should be a good one at the SR Center. The Lake Superior State University Laker hockey team, as I mentioned, not in action this weekend. They'll be home at the Taffy Able Arena next Friday and Saturday, taking on the Michigan Tech Huskies. There were some games in the WCHA this weekend. Northern Michigan, they got a tie and a win at Alabama Huntsville, winning last night by the score of 6-3. Minnesota State, they did the Sioux Eagle or the Lake Superior State Lakers a favor as well. They didn't, I should say, Michigan Tech played Minnesota State tough, as it was a shootout victory by Minnesota State on Friday, and then an overtime victory by Minnesota State on Saturday. And Bemidji State, they played a tie on Friday at Ferris, and they defeat Ferris by the score of 6-1. So looking at the standings, Minnesota State, they're going to finish in first. They have 59 points, but it's a big battle for second, third, and fourth place and home ice advantage in the WCHA playoffs. Northern Michigan and Bowling Green are tied at second with 43 points. Lake State in fourth with 49 points. Bemidji State in fifth with 39, and Michigan Tech in sixth with 37. The Lakers have a pretty favorable schedule, I think. They have 6 games left, 4 at home, including this weekend at Michigan against Michigan Tech. They'll go to Northern Michigan and then finish at home against Wolfville Ferris. So Lakers have a very good shot to finish top 4 in a home ice advantage, which would be a huge season for them. Potentially a chance in an NCAA playoff spot. We'll have to see what happens there. Laker basketball on Saturday. The Laker women fell to Ashland by the score of 75-53, and the Laker men with a big victory as they defeat the first place Ashland Eagles by the score of 77-66. It was Tim Cairnduff with a big game, 14 points on the night, including 5 of 6 shooting. Malik Adams, he had 20 points for the Laker men. And that was a big victory for the Lakers because they're fighting for a home playoff spot in the GLIAC as well. And they're in a bit of a logjam in the middle of the standings because right now, looking at the standings, Davenport has moved in first in the GLIAC. They have a record of 12-3 in the conference. Ashland second, 11-4. Wisconsin Parkside third, 10-5. You have Ferris State in fourth at 9-6. Lakers in fifth with 9-6. Northern Michigan in sixth with a record of 9-6. And then Northwood, they're at 8-7 and seventh. So the Lakers have 5 games left, including this Thursday, as they will take on the Michigan Tech Huskies, and then Saturday against Northern. They'll be on the road for a couple games at Wisconsin Parkside, and then Purdue Northwest. Then they'll finish at home with a big game against Ferris State, the defending Division II national champions. So we'll see what happens for the Laker men. They're going to make the GLIAC playoffs, barring a late season collapse, and hopefully a home playoff matchup at the Coop. That's it for the local sports here on the game. Again, this special edition live from Greenville, Alabama, Greenville, South Carolina. We'll be back next week with another edition of the game from the Wicked Sister on Ashman Street on Monday, February 18th. And hopefully we'll be joined by Butch Davis from Butch on Sports, and you can get caught up on the Detroit sports scene on his show, thegamesportshow.com. or thegamesportshow.podbean.com, where you can find Butch on Sports. Looking quickly at the Detroit sports scene, the Detroit Pistons, they were in action Friday night. They defeated the New York Knicks by the score of 120-103. Andre Drummond, 29 points, 20 rebounds. For the Pistons, who made some moves, they got rid of a couple players to get some draft picks, and not saying that they've totally given up on this season, but you almost think that it's going to be pretty hard for the Pistons to really do anything. I mean, they could still make the playoffs. Right now, they're just a half game out of that final spot in the East. The Pistons with a record of 25-29, half game behind Miami, and really within shot of 6th. Brooklyn in 6th. They're only 2.5 games behind the Brooklyn Nets, and they'll be in action on Monday night. They'll take on the Washington Wizards at the Little Caesars Arena. Detroit Red Wings in action yesterday, a stinker in Buffalo as they lose to the Buffalo Sabres by the score of 4-3. So the Wings not going to make the playoffs. They're in action at Chicago this afternoon at 3. I believe that's the NBC game. Two teams that are definitely having some struggles this year. The Wings with the record of 21-27-7. Could they still technically get into the playoffs? Technically, yes. Realistically, no. They're 14 points out of the playoffs, so the Wings once again playing for draft picks. And hey, we're only a few weeks away from opening day. Pitchers and catchers will report for the Detroit Tigers coming up at the end of the month. Looks to be a long season for the Detroit Tigers as they are rebuilding once again. College basketball from yesterday as Michigan State, they have been struggling as of late. Losers of 3 in a row, but they did win yesterday as they won at home against Minnesota by the score of 79-55 in Michigan. They avenged their loss at Wisconsin, defeating the Badgers by the score of 61-52. Michigan State will be in action on Tuesday. They will take on Wisconsin on the road, and Michigan will be at Penn State. As the Big Ten, well, right now Michigan is on top with a record of 11-2. Purdue in second place with a record of 10-2, and Michigan State in third with a record of 10-3. Had a chance to watch Duke take on Virginia last night, and boy, Duke does look strong. They have to be the odds-on favorite, in my opinion, to win the NCAA men's basketball tournament. Tennessee is in the top dog in the rankings, but don't let that fool you. I don't think Tennessee is going to be knocking off Duke. I have a hard time seeing anybody knock off Duke. Well, the Super Bowl, we talked about that this week on ESPN Blacksburg with Paul Van Wagner and The Drive, which you can find on thegamesportshow.com. Had a chance last night to watch the American Alliance of Football. Atlanta and Orlando was the game shown in this area, and gotta say it was entertaining. It was a bit of a slow start. It was, a few penalties here and there, and offenses weren't really clicking, but it was an entertaining game. I believe Orlando won the game by the score of 40-9, but there was some talent out there, and I think CBS did a good job with the telecast. And one of the things that I really liked is going live to the replay booth and hearing the conversation with the replay official. I really thought that was a nice part of the game. I like the fact that the commercials were shorter, and there were some big hits on some quarterbacks last night. So the AAF, I'm going to watch more of it. I thought it was a good start. Hey, it's football in February, a time where sometimes there's not a lot going on in the world of sports. You know, I'm not a NASCAR guy. The Daytona 500 doesn't get my adrenaline pumping. It's still about a month away from March Madness and baseball. So, hey, 2 thumbs up for the AAF so far. It's football. It's fun. And hopefully we'll see more. That's going to do it for this special edition of the game. Again, we will be back next Monday February 18th at the Wicked Sister for our next live edition, 6 o'clock on Eagle 95.1 or EagleRadio951.com. The full 2-hour show you can find on thegamesportshow.com. Dave McKeag will have a show from Northern Superior Brewery this week, talking about the world of sports with his merry band of gentlemen. And we should also be hearing from Butch Davis from Butch on Sports, all you can find at thegamesportshow.com. That's going to do it for me. I want to thank all y'all for listening in, and we will talk to you next week for another edition of The Game here on Eagle 95.1.